Have you ever had that strange feeling inside that the game you played was such an experience that there is no possible way to replicate that feeling you felt for the first time, even if you replay it, especially if you replay it. But that isn't the case with other types of storytelling medias, like movies or TV shows, for an example. When I watch something that I consider a masterpiece for the first time, I'm usually left confused, and after a while, there is this vague sadness that there won't be something that will connect with me the same way. So I consume as much media about it as I can. I like to call this post peak depression. It usually goes away after a month, and I'm able to experience these stories again and to be left even more amazed. This depression is also present in games, but somehow it's stronger and lasting longer, but in a different way. A way in which the brain analyzes these games to an extent where replaying it will actually make it worse. I wanna start with a game that left me speechless in every possible way. For those who aren't familiar with Alan Wake 2, it's a truly masterfully made psychological survival horror game by the absolute geniuses at Remedy Entertainment, in which you play as two characters, Alan Wake, as the name of the game suggests, and Saga Anderson. I'm gonna try to spoil as little as I can so that you can go and experience the game for yourself if it catches your interest. I was familiar with the Remedyverse, but never really got that invested in it. But what exactly is the Remedyverse? Well, it's like Marvel's MCU, but this time it's called RCU, and it's basically Remedy's games sharing the same universe. For now, the only ones that are officially confirmed to be a part of it are Control and Alan Wake. I have played Control and watched some gameplay of Alan Wake, so without seeing anything from the second game, I wasn't expecting for it to be something that's gonna leave such a strong impression on me, let alone blow my mind. Probably because back then the first game didn't really leave a strong impression on me, which I know, it's super strange, but just lately I have learned how to really appreciate games more. I consider the game to be genuinely a masterpiece. Everything in it is crafted with so much detail and love. Like, even if you don't play the game and just watch footage of behind the scenes, you can genuinely feel their passion for the games they make. And thank God Sam Lake exists, because this person is just amazing. I know it can be controversial, but for me, Sam Lake is on a Kojima level. Anyway, the soundtrack is so good and it's so underappreciated. A part of it is made by the band called Old Gods of Asgard, which has been a part of other previous games that share the same universe. And you really can't help but love and adore these guys, because on top of that, they are even a part of the story, which really helps with getting connected to the game. I got really invested into it from the start of my playthrough, and the atmosphere is amazing. They have perfected not only the aesthetic, but the main feeling that danger can always be around the corner. And even though sometimes there are people around you, you know no one can and will help you no matter what. Also, a fun fact about the graffiti that you can find in the Dark Place, which is a location in an alternate dimension that has taken the form of Alan Wake's dark subconscious, is that almost every single one is different and not just a copy and paste of the same thing. Also, if I'm not mistaken, there are several notebooks that are full of just graffiti design, and every single one in the game has been drawn on a canvas with real spray cans, which is absolutely nuts and shows that with passion, even those little details can actually help to immerse you in the game. A big part of the story play these manuscripts that are scattered all around the different locations, and when I found the first few pages, I started speculating and questioning everything about the story. On some pages you read about things that just literally happened, but gets really interesting when you find those on which the future is predicted, and you just start speculating about when and how it's gonna happen and what is gonna lead to that event. So the game is heavily playing with your mind, and it's something that it does really often. So be prepared to feel like a psychopath from time to time, but that really is a part of its charm. Another amazing thing is the mind place, which is basically a menu, but masterfully done to be like the mind of the character, where you can walk around and see different things that he uses daily or are part of his memories, and distinguish who he is, which helps to make you feel like you're in his boots even more. If you go in Saga's mind place, you can resolve mysteries and use the information you get from people to find hidden things like a real investigator, because Saga actually works as an FBI investigator, which is really crazy and is also one of the main mechanics for the 20 something hours that I managed to finish the game in, and I never got bored of these systems. I actually got even more excited as the game went on, but honestly, I can't see myself replaying this game. This is where the whole point of the video comes in, and no, it's not because it's bad or something, of course no. It's actually quite the opposite. It's somehow too good for me to play again. The memories I made and the way I think about it makes it impossible for me to replay it, because when you go through these moments again, you won't have this strange feeling that you just experienced something truly amazing for the first time. For an example, there are these parts of the game that have really stayed with me, and I think of them every time I see something Remedy related. But I don't want to go through them again because I believe this fondness that I have will be gone. Those chapters are the end of the first chapter, the fifth chapter that ends with the song Anger's Remorse, and the fourth Alan Wake chapter. Next are the Batman Arkham games. I don't think there is a single person who plays video games and isn't familiar with Rocksteady's Arkham games, which are only 5. My favorite out of all of them gotta be Arkham Knight, probably because I have spent the most time in it. I honestly can't comprehend the fact that the first game, Arkham Asylum, came out whole 16 years ago in 2009 and still looks incredible next to games that shall not be named. The atmosphere in all of the games is amazing. It really makes you feel like you're the protector of Gotham at 3 AM and not just some weird ass loser rotting in his room. The fighting mechanic is incredible. With all of the combos, the satisfaction of deflecting the punches and the variety of different gears that you can use, plus all the rigorous puzzles, the incredible boss fights, which in my opinion are probably some of the most memorable of all time. Heck, even the models of the characters are so good that when I played these games, I was kinda little and some bosses got me pissing my pants. There are a lot of side things you can do, and the exploring feels really fun when you can fly through the city without having the danger of being jump scared, or you can drive a beast of a car that can actually be bought in real life for 3 million. Even though I can say that I consider Arkham games also as masterpieces, I somehow don't have that same fondness as I said I got earlier with Alan Wake, that is stopping me from replaying. And I believe if I go and load up any of the games right now and start the campaign, the story will hit me fairly the same with some little exceptions. So if I had a great time with both games and I consider them masterpieces even, why can I replay the one but not the other? The piece of art called Bioshock is a franchise made by Irrational Games, now known as Ghost Story Games, that a lot of people have heard of, but I don't think as many people have played the games, as most of my friends that have played the game, which aren't really many, have only finished the first one, and that's it, no more for them. So I hope that if any of you haven't played the game, or just the first one, then what I'm about to say is gonna make you want to play them. In the first one, you play as a character named Jack, who never speaks, and you mainly learn the story through audio diaries, which some people find unrealistic, but I think that it works perfectly if you don't look too much into it. Anyway, in the first game, you're introduced to this underwater spectacle of architecture, Rapture, and its citizens. But before you get to the city, your plane is attacked and you crash into the water, where you get to a bizarre lighthouse, and from there you go underwater. The scene where you see Rapture for the first time is really breathtaking, even 17 years later, and it will stay with you for sure. The city was built by the main antagonist of the game, Andrew Ryan, with the idea that everyone can look after their own interest, and that everyone is entitled to the sweat of their brow. Even though that the city is kinda gone into shit, and it isn't really lively when you arrive, there is still that feeling that it's somehow alive. Really, a lot of thought has gone into the design of every different place in Rapture. If you want, you can also watch the director's commentary, where they explain a lot of how the designing process went. Throughout the game, there are these mini bosses, which are really interesting and really memorable, not only because of the characters themselves, but the areas they're in perfectly represent them, which really helps deliver the feeling that they're somehow real. Such characters are Dr. Steinman and Sander Cohen. There are also the Splicers, which are citizens that are geeking on substance called Adam, and are incredibly well done, not only in combat, but if you try to listen to them, it's like they're making a whole conversation with each other, and it's not only 2, 3 or 5 of them, almost every Splicer has been made to feel like a living person. And also, there's the face of Bioshock, the Big Daddy, that protects his little sister, and they're also pretty tough to beat. I forgot to mention that beside Jack, other characters that are a big part of the story are Tenenbaum and Atwas, which are extremely well written and are the reason for one of the biggest plot twists in gaming. But I won't say much more because I don't want to spoil too much of the game. Just all I'm gonna say is, would you kindly get to Bioshock 2? I want to talk about different games, but I feel like I can't be mentioning Bioshock if I don't include the whole trilogy. I'm not gonna talk as much about the second game, not because it's worse, but it's again in Rapture, and you're familiar with the city, it's just 8 years later, but this time you're playing as a Big Daddy, whose little sister Eleanor has been taken away, and you're trying to get her back. This time you don't really have a name, but you're called Project Delta, which makes it easier to step in his role and be more emotionally connected with the story. The main villain this time is Sophia Lamp, which has taken the control over Rapture. Everything works fairly the same, the combat is just made a bit better, but sadly, the areas aren't that memorable, and you don't have side characters like Sander Cohen. You meet again with Tenenbaum, and you have a new companion, Sinclair, who is really a great fella, and I blame Bioshock for making me think he's a bad person at first. Bioshock Infinite is a prequel, and even though it's really different from the previous two games, I think it's probably my favorite. The main characters of the game are Booker and Elizabeth, and the main villain is Father Comstock. The story develops in Colombia, which instead of underwater is in the sky, and again, the introduction scene to the city is just magnificent. Can't be explained with words, just has to be experienced. There are some pretty memorable places and characters like the Luteces, Fink and Daisy. Throughout the whole game you're wondering how does this really connect to Bioshock, and oh boy, the ending is insane. I'll never forget it. Like, the plot twists just totally transform the world of Bioshock as you know it. Really, I can't give enough credit to the incredible devs behind those games. And a quote that really got in my brain, and I get shivers from it every time I think about it. There's always a lighthouse, there's always a man, there's always a city. Wolfenstein is the last game that I'm gonna talk about. I have played only the New Order, so I won't include the other games. It's made by Machine Games and is probably one of the best first-person shooter games I have ever played. The story takes place in Nazi Germany, that is so technologically advanced that they managed to beat the Allies and win the Second World War, which leads to them trying to dominate the whole world. Here comes your role as William J. Blazkowicz, who is accompanied by the pilot Fergus Reed and Probst Wyatt. Your mission is to destroy Castle Wolfenstein, which is reported to be a weapons laboratory run by the General Death's Head. After that, things go very south for Blazkowicz, but ultimately his main goal remains fairly the same, and it is to stop the General. The story, I would say, is pretty straightforward and doesn't have any crazy plot twists, but it manages to really keep you engaged all the time. The combat is super fun and extremely satisfying, with variety of weapons that give you choice if whether you would want to approach the mission in stealth mode or just straight up go and shoot everything that is moving in front of you. The scenery is pretty dark and really oppressive, which perfectly gives off that feeling that the world has fallen and there is no hope, which really helps you to immerse in the story. That leads to some really memorable missions, like the London Nautica, the Camp Bellica, the Gibraltar Bridge, and of course the starting one at Castle Wolfenstein. But even though there are a lot of Nazi soldiers everywhere, they don't really feel alive, and neither does the world, sadly. I just couldn't escape the fact that I am playing a video game and I'm not really a soldier shooting Nazis, which led to me not being able to dive 100% into the story and its characters. But nevertheless, I still had a great time with the game. I would 100% love to replay the game someday, because I don't think it will ruin the experience of my first playthrough. So, here we are, the conclusion. If you're still watching, you may be wondering, what is this shit, bro? I just sat through 18 minutes of talk and didn't hear almost anything about the topic of the video. I'm really sorry if the things I said have been messy or not ordered very well. That's kinda how my brain works, and I tried to tidy it as much as I could so you can understand me. I purposefully haven't said what really makes a game replayable and unreplayable, even though I tried to give hints. And as you may have noticed, I had a little bit of bias for the unreplayable ones. I'm sorry. Anyway, for me a game to be a one-time experience, just being good or great isn't enough. And this is where Alan Wake and Bioshock really succeed, but Batman and Wolfenstein fail. I think what makes the first group of games special is that they excellently manage to make you believe that you're in a real world with real characters that have real feelings. And the way they represent their characters throughout the story makes you actually give a damn about them. If not every, then almost every single one of them that plays a small or a big role. For an example, with Alan Wake, we can see that the developers have managed to give this lonely, dark and oppressive world a heart and soul, which perfectly reflects on the story that represents what it can be like to try and escape from the wickedness inside that tears you apart every day, and how you have to face your fears. Not only that, but when we look from a gameplay perspective, we can see that the game doesn't offer you something that takes you out of the belief that you're actually a detective who is extremely vulnerable, but still has to try and do everything possible to save your family and ultimately the world. On top of that, I believe that the thing that played probably the biggest part in all of it is the music, because we as humans have a way of connecting memories or events to different songs, and Alan Wake with its music at the end of every chapter makes it exactly like a movie ending. This way, engraving the moments into your brain, and you're helpless against the so cheesy but also so brilliant power of music in such moments. But the devs didn't stop at that. You have a full-on musical level, and through the whole level of it, the song Herald of Darkness plays. Well, that should be already enough to make the level very distinct. They actually have a musical video and choreography for it, making an even bigger impression the first time you witness it, solidifying Alan Wake as a truly special experience. But then, does the same relate to Bioshock? Or are things with it completely different? Well, I would say a little bit of both. As we all know, in Bioshock, there aren't any fancy choreographies, songs, or anything like that. But as I mentioned in the section about the game itself, it manages to sell you a city that in our world it is impossible to exist. A city that has went through fucking hell. A city that isn't flourishing with life. But yet, it's so alive. But how? Well, you see, I believe it's called a soul. Rapture is a place that isn't operating correctly anymore, but it's not destroyed totally. While exploring, you can still witness its beautiful architecture and take a glimpse into the rooms its citizens used to spend their everyday lives, with some NPCs still reminiscing of those times even though they're out of their rightful minds, and you know just the fact that you can see the other buildings in the water and the different fishes swimming or listening to some cozy jazz can strangely give a sense of warmth or a safe place that stays with you in this crazy world that you find yourself. If by any chance the first two games didn't provoke anything in you, the third really plays with your emotions, especially the Burial at Sea DLC, which is tying the games together. And for the final scenes, they chose to pick as a song La Vie en Rose, and because of these motherfuckers, every time I hear the song, I get emotional, adding to the fact that the game story feels real, or at least has a real soul and stays with you. And I believe this is where Wolfenstein and Batman fail for me. Although being really incredible games, I had so much fun playing them, but they do not implement all these things that I already said, which really help to connect with the player. And I believe the main culprit in all of this is music. Because, yeah, a lot of games have those moments that make you feel joy, sadness, or other kinds of emotions, really, with which the story leaves an impression. But you feel that way for a moment, and when that moment goes away, you're left with just a memory that slowly fades away with time. But as I gave an example with Bioshock, when there is a memorable song with it, the memory still fades away with time, but it leaves a bigger impression or maybe a scar, with having things that you connect with it and keep it burning and staying alive in this head of yours every time you hear that melody. I just want to say thanks to everyone that watched this video through the end. It's the first time that I do something like that, and it has been a long process, mainly due to my procrastination and laziness. Even though that I had so much fun making the video, it being finished is like a Christmas present for me, even though the video was supposed to come out around New Year's Eve, and now we are in March. But yeah, I would love to hear your criticism and read your feedback about the video. So, as a final mindset that I have, and it is a thing that I usually say when playing, watching, or reading something, and I would love to share with you guys, is that if you find yourself thinking about a certain artistic media non-stop after you have finished it, then you have experienced something truly amazing for yourself, and you should dive as much deeper into it as you can. And whatever you do not let it go. Let it become a part of who you are and what you can be.